Chapter 7. No Grandpa's Here. I sit on my bed holding a copy of Alice in Wonderland. The shaky writing in front of the book says, "For Allie, my wondrous girl, love, Grandpa." The colors of the book are all bright even though the book is old. Inside, the pages are soft, and the writing is bigger than in books now. But I still can't read it by myself. It's like having a gift that's locked in a glass box. I'm feeling heavy, but I always do on Sunday nights. The thought of another week of school does that. It's like knowing I have to pull a tire through a keyhole the next day. But I'll have a new teacher. A Mr. Daniels sounds like a grandfather type with pockets full of lollipops, which could be nice. I'm hoping he'll spend a lot of time straightening his bow tie and telling us about the good old days and not having us work much. But when I show up, I find that Mr. Daniels is no grandfather. He's younger than Mrs. Hall. He wears a dark jacket and a tie with colored circles on it. When I get closer, I realize they're planets. Most of the kids are gathered around him. I throw my stuff in the closet and walk over. He says, "My very excellent mother just served us nachos," and claims it's an easy way to remember the planets in order from the sun. Albert, whose hair reminds me of a bird's nest, stands nearby. I feel bad for Pluto. I look over and my eyes are pulled into the bruises on his arm. Pluto was a planet all those years, and then someone just decided it wasn't anymore. Too small, too far away, orbit not just right. I really don't think Pluto cares, Albert, I mumble. He sits in his chair and says, "Well, I do." I feel bad for him and want to ask him about the marks. He is big and clunky, but not fat. The kind of size who others would usually leave him alone. So I'm going to pause here for a moment. The author is starting to develop Albert as a main character. What do we know about him at this point? In your reading journal, I want you to write down some of the theories you have about Albert right now. Think about traits, challenges. The author seems to have dropped a clue about a major life issue that Albert is facing. Let's keep reading to find out why Albert might have those bruises. I pull out my chair and sit down. Okay, I tell myself, I'm going to do better. I'm going to work harder. That's all I need to do. I'm going to really concentrate this time, even though I know I've tried that and it doesn't work. Reading for me is like when I drop something and my fingers scramble to catch it, and just when I think I have it, I don't. If trying to read helped, I'd be a genius. Mr. Daniels is in front of me. I hold my breath and lean back. He holds out his hand. "I'm Mr. Daniels. Nice to meet you." Shay leans towards Jessica. I guess he doesn't know who he's talking to. As usual, most of her friends laugh. "Hey," Mr. Daniels says, turning to her. "That isn't cool. Why don't we don't do that in here," which wipes the smile off Shay's face. Then he turns back to me. "What's your name?" "Allie Nickerson," I answer so softly that even I can barely hear myself. "Well, are you going to shake my hand, Allie Nickerson?" he asks. "I don't bite on Mondays." Great. Just what I need. A funny guy for a teacher. I take his hand, but only for a second. My mind is already spinning off, wondering what terrible things Mrs. Silver has told him. The plans they've made for me. I see myself wrapped in rope and lying on train tracks, just like in Grandpa's old black and white silent movies. So this chapter is titled, No Grandpa's Here. At first, Allie thought Mr. Daniels sounded like an old man until she met him. What kind of teacher is Mr. Daniels? Jot down some ideas about Mr. Daniels. You might also want to include if you'd like him to be your teacher. Okay, fantasticos. Take your seat, he calls. Time to set the world on fire. Everyone scrambles to their seats, but I'm still lying on the imaginary train tracks, all tied up and watching the engine come around the corner. And that is the end of chapter 7. So right at the end, Mr. Daniels says, time to set the world on fire. I've heard that expression before. What do you think he means by that? Jot in your journal what you think the expression, time to set the world on fire, means.